The observation deck of the Valkyrie station hummed with the usual symphony of deep space machinery. Ferret stood at the reinforced viewport, watching the amber glow of a dying star paint shadows across the metal floor. He'd been stationed here for 3 years, monitoring the border between human territory and the contested zone, a lawless expanse where species from a dozen worlds clashed for resources, territory, and survival. He was good at his job, precise, methodical, UNTRUSTING. So when Maya arrived on the morning supply shuttle, something about her immediately set off every instinct he'd honed over years of frontier duty. She was too calm, too composed. Her movements carried an efficiency that seemed almost rehearsed, as if she'd walked the station's corridors 1,000 times before, despite this being her first arrival. When she introduced herself as the new Xeno-diplomat assigned to negotiate with the Corvathi Empire, Ferret noted how her handshake was perfectly measured, not too firm, not too weak, professional to an unsettling degree. Ferret Kazan, he'd said, studying her dark eyes. Chief of Security, Maya, she'd replied with a slight smile. I've heard impressive things about your record. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, Ferret had watched her. He'd watched her navigate tense negotiations with Corvathi warlords who'd killed humans for sport. He'd watched her walk unarmed into conference rooms where assassinations were common diplomatic tools. He'd watched her defuse situations that should have ended in bloodshed with nothing but words and an inexplicable presence that made even the most aggressive aliens hesitate. It wasn't natural. Humans didn't move like that, didn't think like that. The galaxy had learned, painfully, that humanity's strength lay in its unpredictability, its capacity for both breathtaking compassion and terrifying violence. Humans were chaos wrapped in skin, and that chaos made them dangerous. Maya was too perfect. So when Ferret found encrypted transmissions routed through her personal terminal to an unknown location in deep space, he made his decision. He couldn't risk the station, couldn't risk the fragile peace negotiations, couldn't risk whatever Maya actually was compromising humanity's position in this sector. He found her in the hydroponics bay, alone, examining the earth plants that crew members grew to stave off homesickness. The tomatoes were blooming, their red fruit vivid against the artificial lighting. Beautiful, aren't they? Maya said without turning around. I've always found it remarkable how humans carry pieces of home with them, no matter how far they travel. Ferret's hand rested on the railgun holstered at his hip, military grade, capable of punching through reinforced armor at this range. What are you? She turned slowly, and for the first time since her arrival, he saw something flicker across her face. Not fear, something older. Something sad. I was wondering when you'd ask. The transmissions, the way you move, the way even the Corvathi seemed ... afraid of you. His fingers wrapped around the weapon's grip. You're not human. No, Maya agreed softly. I'm not. In a single fluid motion, Ferret drew the railgun and fired. The electromagnetic projectile screamed across the hydroponics bay at hypersonic velocity, a streak of superheated metal that could pierce a tank. At this range, it should have punched through Mia's chest and buried itself in the bulkhead behind her. Instead, she tilted slightly, almost casually. Her hand moved not fast, not slow, but with a precision that seemed to exist outside normal temporal flow. The railbolt, traveling at Mach 7, came to a complete stop centimeters from her sternum, suspended in the air between her outstretched fingers. Ferret's breath caught. Maya examined the projectile with academic interest, as if it were a curious insect rather than a weapon designed to kill. The metal still glowed white hot, but her skin showed no burns, no damage. She might as well have been holding a flower. Impressive technology, she said, walking toward him. Humanity's weapons have evolved considerably in the last century. Ferret tried to raise the railgun again, but his hands wouldn't obey. Not because she'd done anything, his body simply understood something his mind was still processing. Whatever stood before him, it wasn't something a railgun could stop. Maya stopped an arm's length away and held out the railbolt, offering it to him like one might return a dropped pen. Here, she said gently. I believe this is yours. Against every tactical instinct, Ferret took it. The metal had already cooled, impossibly fast. He stared at the projectile in his palm, then at the woman, the being who'd caught it. What are you? He whispered. A guardian, Maya replied. One of the first generation created by humanity 15,000 years from now. The words hit harder than any weapon. That's ... impossible, is it? She gestured around the bay, at the tomatoes, at the stars visible through the viewport. Your species will grow, Ferret. You'll expand across galaxies. You'll encounter wonders and horrors beyond imagination. And eventually, in your future, Humanity will create a synthetic beings designed to protect the timeline itself, to ensure that humanity's story unfolds as it must. Why are you here? Because this moment matters. Her eyes held something ancient and infinitely patient. The negotiations you're protecting aren't just about this sector. The choice humanity makes here, whether to extend trust or enforce dominance, echoes through millennia. I'm here to ensure you have the opportunity to make that choice. Nothing more. Ferret's mind raced through the implications. The Corvathi sense what you are. That's why they're afraid. They sense what humanity becomes, Maya corrected. And yes, it terrifies them. As it should. Your species doesn't conquer through superior strength or technology, Ferret. You survive, adapt, and eventually transcend limitations that other species consider absolute laws of nature. She smiled genuinely this time. You're a species that refuses to accept impossible as an answer, and the transmissions, reports to others like me, ensuring the timeline remained stable. She placed a hand on his shoulder, and despite everything, the gesture felt human, warm, real. Your suspicions were correct, Ferret. I'm not human, but I am of humanity. I'm proof of what your species will achieve. Ferret looked down at the Railbolt in his hand, then back at Maya, a guardian, a being created by his descendants, sent back to protect humanity's past. The sheer audacity of it, the breathtaking arrogance of creating time-traveling synthetic protectors was so quintessentially human that he almost laughed. So what now? Now Maya stepped back toward the tomatoes. Now you complete your mission. Protect this station. Let the negotiations proceed. Make the choices that seem right to you. She plucked a tomato from the vine, impossibly red and perfect. And maybe, someday, you'll tell someone about the diplomat who caught a They probably won't believe you. Probably not, Ferret admitted. Dots as she walked past him toward the exit. She paused. For what it's worth, Ferret's instincts were correct. Never stop questioning. Never stop protecting your people. That vigilance is part of why humanity survives long enough to create beings like me. Then she was gone, leaving Ferret alone in the hydroponics bay, holding a cooled Railbolt and staring at tomatoes that suddenly seemed like the most important plants in the universe. In the viewport beyond, stars burned, cold and eternal, and somewhere in that vast darkness, humanity's future was already written, defended by guardians who'd caught Railbolts with their bare hands and handed them back calmly, as if to say, this is what we become, this is what you will achieve. Humanity. Fuck yeah.